All right. Hello, everyone. A very, very warm welcome to today's LEAP webinar, EisnerAmper's story, increasing utilization and revenue through resource management. I'm Nora, your host for this session on how EisnerAmper transformed their resource management practices using Runn. I work as a new work and transformation consultant, helping organizations create better ways of working, ones that are more flexible, people-focused, and actually make sense in today's world. And I'm thrilled to see you all here. Today's session is a bit different. It's a real-world case study packed with insights, learnings, and a lot of inspiration from a company that's made bold moves in the resource management space. And before we kick off, let's start with a quick poll just to get a sense for everyone here today and how your own resource management practices are looking like. So Edem, feel free to kick off our survey. We have 2 questions prepared for you. The first one is, how would you rate your current visibility into team capacity and workload from crystal clear, decent, but room for improvement, foggy at best, and visibility, what visibility? And the second question being, how long does it typically take to find the right resources for new projects? Might be minutes, an hour, a day or 2, or even longer. And this makes it quite stressful. So we would love to hear from you. Take a moment to answer the poll. And Edem, feel free to close the poll. Let's see where we are at. Awesome. So for the question number 1, how would you rate your current visibility into team capacity and workload? The majority of you said with 45% decent, but there's room for improvement, followed with crystal clear and foggy at best. So the majority decent. And question number 2, how long does it typically take to find the right resource for a new project? Half of you, 50%, answered hours. 30% said minutes, 20% said days, and 10% of you said way too long, it's stressful. So we're really, really hoping that through this webinar, we will be able to shift your answers up a little bit so that there is more clarity and a quicker response time possible. All right, so this webinar is brought to you by Runn. Runn helps teams effortlessly match the right people to the right work, making resource management smoother, smarter, and less of a headache. And this webinar is part of Runn's LEAP webinar series. And through LEAP, we are spotlighting inspiring voices and stories that are shaping the future of resource management, just like today's guest. Just for your information, we'll be using the last 15 minutes for questions and answers. So please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom webinar. Also feel free to make this a lively, interactive session. Share your reactions. If you hear something that you like, use the chat for any thoughts and reflections or comments. And we always appreciate and love to hear from you. And along with me today, I'm super excited to be joined by Jenna Lemon from EisnerAmper. Jenna leads resource management for the advisory service line at EisnerAmper and has been a driving force behind EisnerAmper's successful rollout and adoption of Runn. And from improving forecasting accuracy and visibility to really championing change management across diverse teams, her work has had a real and measurable impact. And I can only feel inspired every time I talk to her. She's such a light to the world. So Jenna, it's such a pleasure and honor to have you here with us. Thank you for sharing your story today.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about, talent and workforce development and resource management. So couldn't be more proud to represent EisnerAmper and excited to tell the story.
Wonderful. And I can see the first reactions coming in, a lot of clapping hands. So thank you from me and all of us that you're here. let's kick off. I would love to dive into EisnerAmper's story by having a look at what specific problems you were trying to solve in as an organization when you found Run. Can you take us back to that moment in time?
Sure. Yeah. So first, to kind of understand EisnerAmper, we're a top 20 U.S. public accounting firm. We're the first large public accounting firm to accept private equity backing. So we made that partnership back in 2021. And with that capital investment, we've been on a very aggressive mergers and acquisitions track. So we've grown very, very quickly. Particularly, our advisory department is more than 50% comprised of merger and acquisition firms. And so we really had a need to bring together a comprehensive view of our workforce to be able to understand, who's available and what the skills and resources are that we have within our department to be able to deploy to be able to meet the needs of our demand coming in. And so before we implemented Run, we lacked all visibility into who was available and how the department could better function and better deploy consultants on projects. So it was a lot of old Excel spreadsheets, a lot of people scheduling in silos. We had really just outgrown that method. And we also had an increasingly urgent need to be able to project our revenue into the future. So to understand what's our forecasted utilization and what does that mean from a revenue perspective. So sort of all of those factors together drove us to search for a tool that was going to be a fit for our growing organization and meet our evolving needs.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I think many of our attendees today can also relate to the fact that there are so many mergers and acquisitions happening. So I can already sense there might be some people in the audience who can relate very much to that starting point. So thanks for outlining that. And when we look at that moment of choosing Run, can you take us through why you ultimately chose Run as a tool for tackling this exact challenge?
Yeah. So, specific to advisory, our service delivery model is incredibly diverse. There's a lot of different practices that have a lot of different ways that they're presenting and delivering services to clients. And so we needed a tool that could show us both from the people dimension and the project dimension what was happening at any given time. So Run had both of those dimensions. So that was a critical component for us. The other feature that really stood out that was going to be important is it has the charts where you can kind of turn on and project the forecasted utilization. And so really at a glance, you could tell when a team was going to hit a workforce cliff. And that was important information for us to be able to project. And so those were really the key features. I mean, we looked at other tools. Our firm had some existing tools in place that work for our other departments in tax and audit. But it was really, the cross resourcing that we do and the way that we go to market to deliver services requires the best skills and expertise from this team and the people from that team that know how to do the project management and the finance specific work. And so being able to kind of bring that together and have the people in the project view was key for us. So the cross resourcing was really what drove us to need to find a tool that was diverse.
Beautiful. Nice. Thank you so much for giving us some background info. And when we now look at the business, basically before introducing Run as a tool, um, can you take us through what specific problems there were and how exactly Run has helped to solve those for the team?
Yeah, when I think back to how we used to resource before Run, it feels like a long time ago, even though it was just earlier in 2024. But it was a lot of phone calls, a lot of ad hoc, hey, who might be available or who has this skill set or when does that project wrap up? A lot of email exchanges and meetings to talk about scheduling. So it's really helped us to go from being reactive to being able to try to figure out how we're going to staff projects that are coming in. And we're shifting a lot more to being able to be proactive, right? So making sure that we're really scheduling to our pipeline of contracted work. So I think being an advisory, again, it's we have to make sure that we're focused on continual business development so we can backfill the available capacity of the team. And so we were running around and continuing to sort of do these ad hoc methods of workforce management that just weren't working. So we were outgrowing that model.
Yeah.
And so, making sure that we understood when is a team coming available, when are folks sort of coming up from air or beginning to wrap up that project, and what are we going to redeploy them on? Either what's in the pipeline or what types of skills are needed across the organization that we can, align those folks to. And so those, beforehand, it was a lot of back and forth. That has really shifted to where we're able to be a lot more proactive in actively managing our forecast and understanding before the project hits, what's going on and what's coming down the pipeline. And so this has really resulted in a lot of freeing up our bench time. And so when you are reactive and you're being able to staff stuff that's already in-house, once it's in here, it's going to result in more bench time because you have folks that are just not able to deploy as quickly. And so that was a big factor for us, is it got rid of all those phone calls, all the meetings, and kind of put everything in one place so we could be a lot more proactive about meeting that demand that was coming in.
Beautiful. Ah, that sounds so freeing. So I hear you talk a lot about the visibility that improved, and also the forecasting. And I remember from our prep calls, there was quite an interesting number that you shared in terms of basically where your forecasting accuracy has come to now. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've been very proud to achieve about 90% forecasting accuracy. So the forecast was another factor that was kind of growing urgently, right? So we had need to, not just from a resource management or scheduling perspective, but from a finance perspective, from an executive leadership perspective, like how is advisory going to perform over the next 30, 60, 90 days or 6 months out even, especially again with all the mergers and acquisitions that we had coming in. And so the forecast was becoming increasingly important to executive leadership. And as I mentioned, we only have about 15% recurring work every year. And in public accounting, when you look at tax and audit, that number for them is about 90%. And so they're pretty sure that they're going to work on the same clients they worked on last year. Whereas we have no idea what we're going to be working on next year because we haven't sold it yet. And so that's why that forecast was really critical for advisory. It's very closely tied to our sales pipeline and critical that we understand how we're going to perform and what the leadership team can expect. And so being able to pull together a forecast was really critical. Easy enough to layer on a bill rate on top and to be able to translate that into revenue once you have the scheduling data and once you have that contracted value there internally. And so this year we're moving a lot more towards making sure that all of our contracted value and revenue is in Runn. And that's going to allow us to really focus on pipeline, right? So as we are winning projects, as we have opportunities that are approaching being closed, we can begin to schedule. And so we've started to use a lot more of those tentative features, scheduling projects that we have a lot of assurance around winning. And that way, once that client signs the contract, we're ready to deploy because we've already sort of modeled out the workforce plan within Runn. And so what this does is it kind of takes our scheduling tool and it elevates it. It's not just a scheduling tool anymore. We're on the same page now with our finance team, with our strategic growth team, with our executive leadership team. We're now using Runn data and Runn forecasts, and we're presenting that on a monthly basis to firm executive leadership. And so being able to kind of pull that all together in one view, not just the people piece, but also the finance piece, has been huge. It's been able to really take us to another level and make us more sophisticated as an organization.
Amazing. And in previous webinars, we talked a lot about the resource management function sitting at the heart of the organization, connecting all those different functions. So being able to have the basis for discussion, to bring all those different perspectives to the table and share something that all of those different units care about and look into is very powerful. So awesome. Very, very exciting to hear. And when we think about the people experience side of basically what changed, what can you share in that space? How has the adoption, for example, picked up?
Yeah, and absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned the resource management being at the heart of the organization. So my title is resource manager, but I often think of myself as like chief dot connector, right? And so I'm sort of in the center and I understand each team and what they're doing. And so when we have opportunities come up, I'm always connecting folks internally. This is the person you should talk with, or here's how you can go to market with this need that the client has. But yeah, from the people perspective, I mean, in public accounting or in any professional services firm, our people are our assets, right? They're the most important piece of what we do. And so, I'll quote Mark Staley here, our leader of our advisory practice. He always says that the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. And so, in order to grow, we've got to get uncomfortable, and that's a lot of times what an implementation is. It's a lot of discomfort, and so making sure that we have a successful implementation is really just about successful change management. And so we really, once we decided that everyone was going to get on Run, we sprinted through adoption. I wanted to make sure that we were moving quickly and that we just got people into the habit of managing their their portfolio of work within Run. And so how we did that was we did a bit of kind of a listening tour, right? So I sat with each leader. We understood how their practice works, what's the cadence of their engagements, what's their client life cycle look like, where does your demand come from? And I think that helps to build a lot of trust. So really leading by listening and listening to your practice leaders. They deeply get what they do. They know what's going to work best for their teams. And it's really up to us as resource managers to be skilled in taking that information and translating it into usable data. And so, working very quickly with the practice leaders and with the partners to get the tool implemented, get their portfolio of work within the tool, and then moving very quickly to hypercare, where we said, okay, now your projects and your people and your assignments are in Run. Let's take a look at it on a regular basis. And we started our kind of our hypercare period where we did our monthly scheduling variance reports. And so we sit down with them on a monthly basis and we take a look at, what did your team schedule last month? And then what did you actually deliver? And we look at that on a team basis, an individual basis, and even a client level as well. So it really just putting this information in front of leaders helps them to get a lot more granular in how they're managing their schedule, how they're managing their workforce. And then in that same meeting, we take a look at the forecast. Okay, we looked back to see how you did last month. What's ahead? What's it going to look like in the next 30, 60, 90 days, right? I'm seeing maybe a dip in utilization. Does this mean we need to, focus on sales pipeline and go backfill that work? Or should I help to kind of connect the dots internally to get your folks redeployed and sort of what's available to do that? And so the meetings have become almost a monthly checkpoint for resourcing in general. And so we've been really pleased to see that evolution. And honestly, it's kind of caught fire around the firm in the best way. So a lot of people have heard about this new scheduling tool. We have an advisory, and we actually had other departments reach out and say, "Can you tell us more about what you're doing?" So we demoed Run, we showed the tool, and now we've got 4 groups at EisnerAmper that are using the Run tool. So making sure that when we have a good thing that we're talking about what that is and sharing success and kind of helping each other as a firm. So we've had, a lot of success with the people implementation component. I would say that it's very change management focused, making sure we're leading by listening and taking the input from those practice leaders that know what their team needs best.
Yeah.
Moving quickly, I think, did help us to be successful just because we kind of went right into it and began the hypercare. And
Mm.
then once it worked, we shared what worked and we made sure that the rest of the firm knew about the advantages of the tools we implemented. So overall, big success from a people perspective.
Beautiful. And I love that term hypercare. It makes me feel like very well taken care of. So as a practice leader, I could already like sense how this would benefit me. I'm being taken care of. Beautiful. And can you walk us through like the adoption rate? I think that is also like a testament to you and your team and the organization's effort, like shifting basically from 0% of utilization in, adoption of Run 2. Where did you end up?
Yeah, so when I started this effort, we did have some teams that were already using Run, probably at different levels of maturity and in their process. Some teams had adopted and it worked well and they kept it going. So when I jumped in, we were at about 30% adoption of Run. And we went from 30% adoption to 100% in about 60 days. So it was a mad dash to get it done. Our organization is about 500 people, and so it was a large effort. It was pretty much all I did for 2 months was dive in and make sure everybody was on Run. But again, once we kind of took that effort and had that big lift, then the hypercare just became part of how we manage our workforce every day. So yeah, from 30% to 100% adoption in about 60 days. So we started that effort in January, and we're fully adopted by the end of February.
Wow. Wow. I think every organization would benefit from a Jenna on the team. So cool. And can you walk us through the time saved? So when we think about, you already outlined a little bit what happened before introducing Run, many like phone calls, etc. So lots of time spent not in the most efficient way. Also communication, alignment took a lot longer. Can you take us through that shift in terms of time saved through the tool?
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned, a lot of times the scheduling was being held at the partner level, at the practice leader level. It would look like a lot of different things. There were spreadsheets. There were sometimes where there were no spreadsheets, and it was kind of in their head. There were meetings that things were held in, where they sort of had these resourcing discussions. And so, when we started adoption, we started with those leaders to make sure they fully understood the tool, that they were bought in, and they understood the value of the tool as well. And then we worked with them again to do that listening and to make sure we understood what their practice needed. Once we had that leadership buy-in, they helped with a lot of the messaging as we got their teams involved in adopting as well. So those first couple of months, it was a lot of practice leaders and a lot of partners. But then as we moved into hypercare, we took some time in the month of March, that third month, to really train that next level of professional. And so that senior manager, that associate director, that manager level, I mean, those are the people that are really working with your staff day in and day out. Those are the people that are leading individual client engagements. And that's where the resourcing work belongs, right? And so this allowed our partners and our practice leaders to be able to take a step back and really just sort of, attend those monthly calls, made sure they had a pulse on what's happening from a resourcing perspective. But getting the work in the hands of the folks where it belonged was key for success as well. And so that was a big component once we, stood up the tool and had all of our portfolios of work, making sure those folks were trained. And so again, these monthly check-in meetings we have, those started out being about an hour long, right? So it was a lot of how do you do this again? And how do you add a project or a person, or how do you move this assignment? So lots of questions, lots of demos, lots of continued training. Now those meetings are more like 15-minute check-ins, right? So
Wow.
we're taking a look at their previous month. What did you schedule? What did you deliver? Why do we think it was accurate or not? And then let's look at your forecast in that same meeting. So we've reduced the time that our leaders are involved in scheduling, right? And these leaders that we're talking about, these practice leaders and partners, are some of the most billable professionals in our firm with the most revenue generating potential. And so making sure that we were leveraging that work down properly for resource management, allowing them to free up their time. And if you look at just sort of some back of the napkin math with their bill rates and the amount of time we've freed up, we're looking at, a few $100,000 in savings just in that first year. And so significant amounts of value that we were able to quantify and think about, how are we best leveraging the professionals that we have who are completely capable of managing this workforce, and freeing up those practice leaders to do what they do best, which is to develop the practice. And so that's been a significant win for us, just the efficiency and the time saved, the efficiency in how we're managing the work, and making sure that it's held at the right level.
Amazing. And those time savings can also be translated to about 75% of reduced leadership time, right? And spent scheduling. So it's just from a business perspective, like that is incredible, right? Those are the individuals selling the work, and the time is extremely precious. So if we can reduce like the time in scheduling by 75%, that's a win on so many levels. So incredibly well done. Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely.
And when we look at the money and revenue side of things, so looking for a tool, investing in a tool, that's a very sensible investment. But you have to make a case for it in some form or shape, right? So can you walk us through what you have actually managed to realize in terms of efficiency gains on a revenue perspective?
Sure. Yeah. So and I'll say this, a lot of things go into increasing utilization, right? So it's the leadership contributions, it's the team efforts, it's good hygiene around scheduling and timekeeping. It's excellent client delivery. There's many things that are going to impact how we increase utilization. The level of maturity of our organization as well, being kind of in year two and unifying the practice was critical. But Runn was a big piece of it. If you look at, the time from when we began implementation of Runn to when we finished, and be able to, have people sort of actively on hypercare and Runn, over that time period, we had a 3.1% increase in utilization. And if you guys are familiar with the Resource Management Institute, they're sort of the third party that brings all of us resource managers together and provides us with resources to leverage for our people. So they have a tool called the RMI calculator, right? And you put in a couple of inputs, what was the increase in utilization? What's your average bill rate? How large is your organization? And what's your average cost per person? And so I kind of took a step back after we were on hypercare and said, what would that, if we had to quantify sort of the value of this increase in utilization, what would that look like? And with those components, 3.1% increase, we've got about a 475 person organization from a client service perspective. It's about a $7.6 million value in utilization savings alone. So incredible amount of value that we're able to take a step back and be proud of our contributions from a resource management perspective about how we got there. Again, there's not a silver bullet that gets you good utilization. It's everybody doing all the right things all the time and having good hygiene around it. But yeah, I mean, talk about a win. That's incredible. $7.6 million in value, and increased utilization. So that was an exciting factor to be able to take a step back and be like, okay, this is it's working. It's a good effort. It's quantifiable, and it's a real way that we're contributing to the bottom line. So it's exciting to be a part of.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's super inspiring. I can see a lot of reactions coming in, which is beautiful, a lot of support. And I think especially when you look at the economy at the moment, how, the business environment is looking, it's really a critical time for organizations to get through this challenging times. So if you are able to increase utilization by 3.1% and translate that to a revenue saving of $7.6 million, that's just a really, really good position to put your business in to get through that time together as a team to help basically the organization thrive and to keep as many people on board as possible. So yeah, it's very, very beautiful and very inspiring. I'm in awe of how you and the team have managed to do that. Jenna, I'm also curious to hear from you. If we look at a tool, any tool, and now especially Runn, it's always a question of how does a new tool serve different needs, different perspectives and users? And can you walk us through how you've seen Runn land with different, let's say, stakeholder groups, how they have been able to onboard?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think a lot of organizations may have sort of one size fits all service delivery models, and that's definitely not the case in advisory. We generate revenue a lot of different ways. We have our traditional time and material model. We do fixed fees. We do retainer. We do commissions. We all kind of aspects of how we're bringing in work, and each team has their own unique needs as well, and sort of how they deliver client service and the cadence at which their client lifecycle begins and ends. And so, that was one great aspect about this journey was I got to really deep dive in with each team and understand their particular needs. And we found a way to sort of make Runn work for each group. And so, that sometimes required different projects or getting creative on how we were allocating the work or sort of bucketing certain aspects of the work and then maybe direct client to client translation on some. But it worked for a lot of our teams, even if they had different ways that they were delivering service to clients or recognizing revenue. And not only that, but again, advisory, as I mentioned, we have to resell 85% of our pipeline every year. But I also mentioned that we implemented it for a couple of other departments as well. So our outsourced services team was one of those departments. Their service delivery model is very different than advisory. They've got a lot of clients that they provide a monthly service for. Those clients are pretty much with them in perpetuity. And Runn works for them also. So we heavily use the phases feature to kind of get them up and running so they can look at things from a monthly perspective. But yeah, I mean, it worked, across the board from a diversity of services perspective. And I
Mhm.
would say that it impacts a diversity of professionals in the firm, right? So now we have, for example, not just resource managers that better understand how to deploy resources on projects, but we have our team now that has more visibility into their workforce, what's available, all of their projects and assignments are in one place. You also have C-suite level executives that now have insights into projected revenue and utilization at any given time. So the diversity of folks that it impacted and the diversity of information that's being distributed from this one tool was a huge win as well. So both from a client service and delivery perspective, and then also just a data and analytics perspective as well. Both of those components were key.
Wow, very nice. Thank you so much. And I'm just gonna share a gentle reminder to everyone listening in. Feel free as you follow our discussion to also reflect on which questions might pop up inside your head. We're very, very keen to hear from you. So make sure to capture your questions in the Q&A, and we will definitely have a look at them. Awesome. So now that we have kind of outlined the before and after, maybe let's dive into a concrete real life example of how your work in resource management has changed. Can you share a specific story or example that illustrates how Run has enabled faster or more effective decision making?
Yes, I actually have, I'll do two if that's okay. So yeah, one of them is, we have a large focus on program administration. So we do a lot of large program delivery. And these projects, when we win them, they need a large workforce and they need to spin up pretty quickly. And so we've had a long history over the past several years of needing to staff these projects. And I remember years ago how hard this was, how long it used to take. It was a lot of meetings. It was a lot of let's get all the partners on one call and let's talk about all their team members and who's available and spreadsheets and emails and all the things. We had an opportunity pop up about a month ago, and we needed to quickly pull together a team of about 30 people for our program administration group. And we were able to use Runn, and myself and the director of program administration, who I believe is probably listening in now, Corey. We were able to jump on a call and sort of in one 30-minute meeting, we had a short list of people that could be on this project, right? And so just the amount of time that it used to take us, not hours, it was days of sitting down and continuing to follow up and let's understand when that project ends, that client engagement ends, to be able to, to go to from that to a 30-minute session where we had a short list of candidates. Now we still had to work through that short list, obviously, but man, to be able to have that at your fingertips is just a game changer for us. And so, that's another example of a unique need that we have. This is the type of work that we specialize in. It's not going anywhere. We love to win this kind of work. And so we've got to be agile in how we staff it and scale it and make sure we've got the right folks aligned to the project. And so to be able to have the visibility of all these people sort of in one view and to click and find this person from this team and this skill set from that team, that has been an enormous reduction in time that we've been able to do that with. And so as that program is now maybe changing or shifting or the timeline's shifting back, we're going to go back to Runn and craft that next short list of how we need to scale and staff and react to that, respond to that change. So that's been a big one. The large programs that we have to spin up and operationalize quickly, that staffing has become a lot more efficient. The other one is, as I mentioned, we do a lot of cross-resourcing where we'll take, again, the expertise we need from several different areas and provide that best team that's going to deliver the service to the client. So as you're cross-resourcing, we've gotten a lot better at how we're doing that and how we're scheduling that through Runn. So making sure that the team that is leading the engagement is the one scheduling resources on projects. We're utilizing the placeholder feature. We've recently had some success as well with using the different phases to define scope, right? And be able to say, okay, these people are tied to this aspect of scope. And it's all color coordinated. It's very easy to see sort of at a glance who's aligned to what and who's involved in the project. And so that's kind of two big wins that, it used to take us a lot longer to be able to pull this information together and make sense of it in a way that was actionable. And now we're able to respond more quickly, to be more agile and be really innovative in how we're approaching the scheduling. So huge
Wow.
difference maker and time saver from my perspective.
Amazing. And it really like takes me back to like the resource manager as almost like this, it's this puzzle, right? As a resource manager that you're trying to constantly like match, and it's a super complex undertaking, right? Constantly shifting, so many different variables. So yeah, I love both of your examples because they just really highlight how you can really gain so much efficiency in that complex undertaking through a tool that can help you with it. So yeah, it sounds very joyful listening to you. It's almost like falling in love with the role of resource management again, because you can serve a lot better in that way. That's super, super cool. And can you dive a little bit deeper into the other teams that started to use Runn? You already highlighted it started off in the advisory services business, which you're a part of, but because I can already sense that also the initiative of you and the team of sharing kind of what was working and helping others explore the tool, it has caught fire in the best way possible. So can you walk us through that a little bit more? Who else is now using it? How did that come to be? For anyone listening in, also keen to help uplift their organizations, resource management capacity beyond their team's scope, what can we learn?
Yeah, yeah. So the other teams that are using it, so it's all of our advisory practice. We got about 500 or so professionals in that group. We have our outsourced services group as well, our outsourced accounting team. So it's about 150 or so professionals on that team. We have a group in assurance as well, our accounting and technology control services group. And then even our firm's enterprise transformation office heard about it, wanted a demo. And so those folks do all the large project management for firm-wide initiatives. And so they now have user accounts on Run as well to manage their firm projects that they're taking on. So those are the groups that have gained functionality and started to kick off their implementation right as advisory was wrapping up. And yeah, I mean, who ended up sort of finding the most value? I think our partners and leaders really see the value. I think having these monthly check-ins that we're doing and being able to put this information in front of them has really been beneficial, that they can see sort of their practice and their portfolio of work all in one place. And so, a lot of lessons learned in that. I think having a tool that's as diverse as your organization is going to be key. You might be able to have more options if you have sort of a straight up service delivery model, but we don't. We have a lot of complexities in how we go to market. We have internal projects and a lot of cross resourcing. So it seemed to fit sort of what everyone needed and was a good fit sort of all around.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And yeah, listening to you and also based on the webinars we've had so far, there is this theme of really getting the buy-in of the leadership team. And I think this is, what really stands out in the story from EisnerAmper, that you and the team have been so good, excellent at creating trust and really always highlighting the benefit to all levels, including leadership. So that makes all of the difference, right? Having that buy-in really helps you to scale and get the most out of the resource management function altogether. Now,
Absolutely.
when we consider your story, I would like to take a step back and just kind of look at this beautiful journey since the beginning of the year, January up to now. What advice would you give to other resource managers for considering a tool like Run? What has your lessons learned been on that journey?
Yeah, so I would say listening to your client service team is key. So lead by listening. So making sure that we're going in and trying to deeply understand what they need. And then it's upon us as resource managers to take that and make sure that that's actionable data that we can translate into business insights and be able to pass on to firm leadership as well. So listening to your client service team, I think, is number one. I would also say that having leadership buy-in is critical. And I don't mean the practice leaders or the partners that deliver service to clients. I mean firm leadership, right? So I was lucky in that our chief operations officer and our chief executive officer of advisory believed in resource management. They believed in the tool and they led a lot of that messaging by unifying the practice. It was in alignment with our strategy for the year and for the team as well. So I think having executive level leadership buy-in is key. And then making sure that you're getting that buy-in from the client service teams by listening and understanding what they're trying to achieve and being involved in helping them do that. So those are the key things that I think are really going to contribute to success. I would also say that going fast helped a lot. And so before they know it, they're on Run and we're just talking about, we're just looking at their schedules each month. And so I think going fast made it less painful, if I'm being honest. So I would recommend taking that upon yourself to get the work migrated in. And then just helping your leaders understand, hey, now everything's kind of under one view. Let's take a look at it. It begins to make sense to them. They begin to recognize the client patterns. And so that was another sort of key to success. So I would recommend moving quickly. It worked for us.
Yeah, wow. And you really nailed that so much. You really ran through that implementation. Nice. I can already see that there are the first questions coming in, which is beautiful. Please keep them going. And just to wrap up our conversation, Jenna, if you were to go back to the beginning of your resource management transformation journey, is there anything that you would do differently, knowing what you know now?
That's a good question. I think it can be overwhelming to demo a new tool, right? People are like, "Whoa, there's all these features and all these things," and I like barely have my schedule in a spreadsheet. And so, one of the things that we ended up incorporating as soon as we started hypercare was just we kind of had a matrix of like, here's all the features that are within Run, and here's the ones that we're focused on right now. And so we really kind of scaled it down to make sure that everybody understood we just want your clients, your people, and your assignments in Run. Once we do that, then we can get these forecasts, and this is how we can, be able to leverage that to look at revenue data. So when you're demoing a tool, there's so much to take in, and especially if they're looking and seeing all these numbers for project economics and things that they're just not ready for. So maybe making sure that you're looking at it through the lens of what's important, what's critical for them to take away and for them to focus on. So if I can go back in time, I probably would have introduced that a lot sooner, because I think some folks were overwhelmed. We did catch on to that and made sure that we implemented that, and we still do it in our calls today because as we're optimizing, we're going to be taking some of those features and saying, okay, let's turn this on or let's begin to use this. But initially, making sure that the focus is just on what's critical to get the tool up and running and operational. And so
Mm.
in retrospect, I probably would have done that a little bit sooner if I can go back in time, but all worked out in the end.
What a valuable insight. And there's the saying of starting small, and I think it applies also just alike when you introduce a new tool, right? So I love the focus on what's critical to get going, what's the minimal viable product, what are the key information we do need to get started with the tool, and then moving like basically step by step, toggling on more features and implementing more data to make it more powerful, but start small, start simple, and just get going at speed.
That's it. Yeah, you got it.
That's super inspiring. Thank you so much. Wonderful. I'm going to start with the first question. So thank you for posing it. Jenna, you mentioned that you went from 30 to 100% adoption in 60 days. Did that include 100% data accuracy such that you could confidently use the information to plan and deploy? If so, how did you get to the 100% accuracy? That's a great question.
It is a great question. Yeah, I would say that in the beginning we were not super accurate. We were figuring it out, right? We were standing it up. Accuracy is something that we measure often. So we take a look at it on a monthly basis. So again, here's what your team scheduled last month, and here's what you actually delivered. I would say right now we're running at about 105 to 110% schedule attainment and advisory overall. So you have some teams that are on the lower end of that. They're attaining 90% of their schedule. Some teams are attaining 115%. Overall, I think our goal would be to make sure that we can have our known work in Run, something that we feel confident we can deliver. And if we over deliver, that's okay, right? And so making sure that we can deliver what we're scheduling in Run is key. So the accuracy is something that has increased over time and something that we continue to monitor. We look at it on a very granular level. So we look at the accuracy of the scheduling of the whole team. We look at individuals, right? You scheduled Tony for 30 hours. He only completed 10 on that project. And just putting that information in front of them a lot of times will shed light on how they're scheduling and prompt them to think, oh, yes, this makes sense because the client had a change in scope, right? Or a spike in work. And so making sure that we're looking from the client dimension, the individual dimension, and the team dimension is key to giving that full picture to the practice leaders. So now we feel confident in our forecast. And so when we put that forecast forward each month, we know that we're going to deliver that forecast usually and then some. And so we've gained confidence over time to be able to, make sure that we're accurately projecting our projected utilization.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's also the philosophy of getting started with something new, right? You can't get 100% accuracy in the first few days. So building upon what is there, improving it is, I think, a very good approach to that change management piece. Awesome. Thank you so much for answering, Jenna, and thank you for the question. Just for your information, everyone, it's very worthwhile sharing all the questions, even if we can't answer them in this live webinar session. We will answer all questions in a separate post-webinar recording for you, which we'll share with you. So keep those beautiful questions coming. We always love to hear from you. Nice. The next one. Let's pick this one. Thank you so much for posing it. How do you plan for uncertainty? For example, last minute changes, resignations, or project delays? Fantastic questions because
Yeah.
uncertainty is the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say that. I mean, it's gonna happen, right? This is part of the role, it's part of what we do, it's part of being in professional services. I would say the number one thing that we do to plan for uncertainty is we limit it, right? And so making sure that our schedules are accurately reflected and run, that we have a good sense of when we schedule that effort, that we actually understand the effort that it's going to take to deliver that client project. And that way, when these opportunities do come up where we had a last minute change or the scope shifted or the client wasn't ready and didn't have their documents, right? We've seen it all. It's going to happen where you have a change in what you've already planned for. So our goal is to limit that as much as possible so that we can deal with those on an ad hoc basis. And that's where we're focusing our time versus what is every team doing and who's available, right? And so if we have that more limited view and these instances are more limited in their occurrences because we have really good scheduling hygiene overall, we're able to better adapt. We're able to more quickly make those changes. So one of a feature in Run that we use a lot is placeholders. So if we have someone resign, but that work is still planned and we still have to execute it, we'll shift that to a placeholder. And then we utilize the features for finding a person, right? We need another director. We can use searches in our skill set feature or search by title to find someone. So it's all sort of within the tool. I would say limiting it is the number one thing we can do to better mitigate that risk is making sure that we have really good schedules, really tight scheduling, and good hygiene around scheduling and time entry. Is probably the best thing that we can do. And then it gives us more time to focus on those opportunities that we do need to pivot. And that's when us as resource managers really dive in and begin to get involved.
Beautiful. Yes. Yes to all of what you said. Thank you so much. Nice. The questions are still coming in. It's very, very cool. Thank you so much, everyone. Also, feel free to thumbs up any questions that you're particularly interested in so I can prioritize those in the live webinar. Next one I'm going to pick is by Margot. Thank you so much for your question. Jenna, how do you track the actual time? What does integration to Run look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say that from an actual time perspective, today we are not feeding our actual time into Run. It is an option. However, our current situation is incredibly complex. As I mentioned, we're doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So right now within advisory, we have 4 different timekeeping systems and 3 different financial systems. And so our time is just everywhere. So we actually have built a Power BI dashboard where we bring in all the timekeeping data into one place. And then we have one of our analysts that extracts that information and compares that to Run data. So today it is a little bit more manual than we would like, but I think that's kind of unique given our current circumstance and just where we're at with the maturity of our M&As. We've got plans over the next 12 months to migrate into one system. And at that time, we can really look at, okay, how do we bring actual time in and make sure that the nomenclature of the clients are consistent, that we've got consistent client codes. So right now our data is just, it's a bit dispersed just given where we're at in our mergers and acquisitions. So for us, that component is done externally. So we take the data from Run. We've got the API feature, which is something we use a lot. We take the data from Run through that API. We have a developer that connects that to real-time data feeds on actual times, and we produce those monthly reports that we're able to share with leaders. So Run does have the functionality to feed in time. It's just not a feature that we're using today because we're growing too quickly to be able to get our hands around that, but it is on the docket for the next 12 months.
Amazing. I mean, you're running so fast, you can't do everything at once. So
That's right.
very, very fair. Thank you so much, Margot and Jenna, for your question and the answer. Cool. I love all these questions. I'm super excited. There are so many. Beautiful. Keep them coming. Next one we're gonna tackle is by Shiv. Thank you so much for your question. Jenna, how do you plan your bench list? Also, the possibilities of recruiting new resources when there is the possibility of increasing the cost.
Yeah, that's a great point. How do we plan our bench? So, it's making sure that we're tackling the components of our performance ecosystem, let's call it, right? So when do we need to go out to the workforce go out to the marketplace to bring in new talent? When does it make sense to cross-train internal talent to build that resiliency? And then, when does it make sense to maybe build our bench of external contractors as well? So I would say it's a constant combination of looking at and assessing those three components. So making sure that our performance ecosystem as a whole aligns with our growth strategy. So for example, if we want to chase a certain kind of work, we want to get into private equity firms, for example, or construction or healthcare, whatever it may be, do we have the skills internally to execute that work, right? Or are we outselling our own capabilities? And so making sure that we're taking a holistic look at performance management and our performance ecosystem is key. And so building a bench, it varies. It depends on the skill sets we have. I would much rather cross-train someone internally than have to go out to the marketplace. One of the things I do on an annual basis is take a look at the contractors we have and why do we have them? How come we went and got a 1099 worker and didn't build this skill internally? Also do the same thing for recruiting. All the people that we brought in throughout the year, are we seeing a pattern in the type of work that's coming in and the type of skill set that we have to go out to the marketplace to get? And making sure that we're assessing that and building that into our talent development plans overall. So, the bench is it's internal, it's building resiliency and cross training. It's external, it's making sure you have the levers to pull when you need to scale and making sure you've got the contingent workforce or the right type of partnership with vendors that get you what you need. It's about making sure you've got a lot of tools in your tool belt because it's going to happen where you have to move quickly and find the right person for the resource. So yeah, building our bench is it's a variety of different ways that we're doing that.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you. I'm just wondering, in terms of all these different types of workforce members, how do you use Run for them? Do you have only internal staff members visible in Run, or how are you basically utilizing the ecosystem and Run?
Sure. So I think it depends on the team. We do have contractors and contingent workers in Run because for some teams, it's a critical part of how they deliver client service. And it is part of what they want to look at when they're looking at their portfolio of work and their workforce. So their workforce is not always W-2. That's okay. We have some teams that leverage that a lot more than others. We have some teams that only work with their W-2 employees. So if a contractor is on a project and it's important for us to understand that, then we do put them in Run. Yes, there's a cost associated, but there's also a cost associated with not understanding your project economics. And so, if that person's going to be contributing to the project in a meaningful way, then we do want that reflected in Run. And that's going to give us the holistic picture that brings together not just the people, but also the economics of the project and the forecasted revenue that goes along with it. So we do add them. We find value in it. I would say not every team does it. If it's kind of a onesie twosie, we're going to use a contractor for this. Maybe there's not a lot of value, but if they're going to be significantly contributing to a client project, we want that captured and Run.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. All right, let's tackle the next one. I think we can answer a few more here and now, and then the next ones in the private Q&A. How does the risk utilize? Let me see if I can read this. How the risk utilize person with many experience and the impact for established team. Not sure I understand this question. Jenna, if you understand it, feel free. Otherwise, maybe you can reframe it and then we're very happy to pick up on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that one either.
Yeah,
But if you want to re-enter that into the chat in a different way, we're happy to come back to that one.
perfect. Let's do it that way. All right, next one. What's your approach to resolving conflicts when multiple projects compete for the same high-value resources? A very classical problem. So great question. Jenna, how's your approach, your team's approach to that?
Yeah, this happens all the time, right? Everybody wants the star player on their team and be able to deliver that client service. Oh, and they put them in the proposal. And so if we win the work, we've got to have that person on the team.
Yeah.
So how do we manage it? I think using the tentative feature is critical. So before we win the work, when we feel really good about a client engagement and that client engagement is going to hit, we want that person scheduled and Run. And so I came across this week where we had, Isabel tied to 3 different projects and her utilization was going to be 260%. And so I talked to the partner and I'm like, let's talk about what's going to make sense here. Unless we've got another couple of Isabels I don't know about, this is not going to work. And so, if it's in Run, that's kind of our record, right? And so making sure, I think this helps to get people in the hygiene of putting their work in Run. When you want to allocate that person, or you want to, go and grab that resource, looks like they're already scheduled and run. And so that, that kind of takes priority. So it pushes again back to making sure we have good hygiene around our scheduling. We have to pivot. So if we have a tentative project where someone is allocated, but another project comes in and that's the demand that we need to fill immediately, we've got to make that decision and we've got to pivot from there. But these types of resource constraints shed light on some maybe gaps in our process or in our systems too. So if we have a lot of demand for this type of skill set, again, what are we doing to backfill that demand? Are we cross-training people? Do we have maybe that junior level person that she can bring along with her and shadow on this project? Should we build a bench of external people? Should we go and hire someone else that can do this? So making sure we're not being too reactive with sort of one-off requests that are coming in. But looking at it holistically to say, are we continuing to see demand that we need to respond to internally? And then what does that response look like?
Amazing. Thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. I think we can probably do one or more, two more. So next one I'm going to choose is by Matt. Thank you so much for posing the question. How has adopting Run helped improve your resource management maturity? That's always an interesting topic, the maturity. Which resource management maturity level, 1 to 5, would you say EisnerAmper was at before Run? And
Ooh,
maybe
that's a great
where
question.
might it be at now?
Someone has been looking at their RMI maturity matrix. I'll say
Yeah.
that. So yeah, our resource management maturity, I mean, how has it impacted that aspect? I would say it's really shed light on all of the areas that we need to improve, right? It's not just a scheduling tool. It can never be that. It's the governance, it's the processes, it's the hygiene around it, it's the buy-in from the leaders. And so before Run, we were probably a 1 to 2, I would say, on that model. There are some aspects in which we're maybe more mature, just given kind of what we do as an organization. From a forecasting perspective, certainly I think we've out benchmarked some of our peers, even internally within Eisner. We've got a very specific roadmap laid out for the next 18 months to get us to level 3.5 to 4 over the next 18 months. And so right now we're probably around a 2.5 to 3 on that maturity model, but continuing to increase with very specific goals to make that happen. So again, taking a holistic look at not just the staffing component, that's a big piece of it, but the forecasting component, the governance component, the process component, all of these things have to be refined in order to get us where we need to be. And so I love the resource management maturity model. I think it's a great way to sort of benchmark what you're doing internally. And we have worked that into our RM strategy that we've built and developed for the next 12 to 18 months. So excited to continue to see that grow.
That's super inspiring, and what an ambitious goal. I think that's super awesome. I wish you all the best for that. So, to sum up our discussion, we've prepared this beautiful slide right here just to kind of leave everyone with the key highlights of the EisnerAmper journey. So, from insight to impact, what has shifted on that journey so far? You talked about the increase in utilization of 3.1% after implementing Run and establishing solid processes and governance. You took us through the journey of accuracy from a 0 baseline to a 90% accuracy, which is really, really wonderful. When you translate the 3.1% increase in utilization using the RMI calculator, we get a saving that adds up to about 7.6 million annually in savings slash revenue increase. The Run adoption jumped from 30% to 100% in just 2 months, highlighting how you have really sprinted through this. Also, the time savings per year estimated through efficiencies gained by scheduling and Run, about 300K, and 75% reduced leadership time spent on scheduling, and scaled from 1 to 3 to 4 units, expanding from initially advisory to other areas of the business like outsourced and firm operations and assurance. So those were kind of the highlights that we wanted to share with everyone, to leave the conversation on that very high, beautiful note. So Jenna, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure diving into this phenomenal story with you.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. Excited to answer any follow-up questions. Find me on LinkedIn or reach out, and happy to continue the conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And just as a quick outlook, we're excited for our upcoming webinar in August. On August 26th, we will have Carrie Kilford, Martha Arias-Webster, as well as Guy Marsh joining us for a session on resource management strategy fundamentals, the why, how, and what of resource management. So we would absolutely love to see you there. All right, so this has been an incredibly fun hour. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's incredible how quickly an hour can pass. Feeling extremely grateful and blessed to have spent it in such a meaningful way, and wishing you all a beautiful rest of your day wherever you are in the world. Take good care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.